Fintech is the new buzzword in the world of business. Many entrepreneurs are disrupting the banking system through new technology and innovation to enter the market. This new business trend has caused major banks to envisage to merge with entrepreneurs in order to coexist and eliminate competition. Recently, Uber, ewallet, Bitcoins and others are a result of the fintech technology, which is now gearing towards the fourth industrial revolution. And the first fintech hub to be launched in Africa was Alpha Code, and it held a startup symposium in Sandton recently. And most entrepreneurs are exploring the fintech industry. But then, what is it all about? Dominique Corlet is Senior Investment Executive at Rand Merchant Investment Holdings and is here to tell us. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You know, the first time when I heard the word or the name Fintech, I thought it's one of those trading companies or financial institutions or even an IT company. But what is Fintech?
So Fintech is really just the technology that is harnessed by the financial services industry. So it's either technology that is used by a bank or an insurance company to deliver their services, or it's the way that a company is actually enhancing their operations.
So if we're talking about financial technology, Fintech, how disruptive is it? Because when we're talking about disruption, we're talking about hooliganism, we're talking about something negative. That's what comes to mind. But tell us about the context of disruptive technology. What does it mean?
Sure. So, I think you've got to understand the financial services industry globally is huge. It's $1 trillion industry globally. And in South Africa, it's one of our biggest sectors. So, it's an incredibly important part of the global economy. And it's an incredibly important part of people's lives. The way that people are engaging with financial services is changing. You know, we've got the rise of things like social media, we've got the rise of things like mobile phones, and we've got a new generation, this millennial generation, which are engaging with the world in a fundamentally different way. And yet we've got a financial services industry that has developed over the last 300 years, which may not service the needs of the consumer today. So really what we're talking about is how do we develop businesses that cater to the new world? And the point is that the guys that get that right and actually deliver services and goods to these consumers are going to be very threatening to these large institutions that have evolved over the last sort of 100, 200 years.
When you're talking about change, it's very difficult to manage it, especially when you're talking about a manager who has experience of 20 to 30 years. And for him to migrate from the normative way of doing business to adapting to new technology, surely there's going to be a hassle when it comes to changing to the new technological way of doing things.
There is, and I think this is what the big corporates are struggling with, and this is a challenge that globally the banks are struggling with, because they are big bureaucratic organizations that have done certain things for a very long period of time, and you've now got these aggressive young firms that are coming up that are delivering things at a pace with which these large institutions can't cope with. So it is quite a big problem, and I think we are going to see some big fallout when these two worlds start to collide. But ultimately, who's going to decide on this? It's the consumer.
But then how do you think there's been reaction towards this? Have people been welcoming to fintech or what? Because I remember in the early stages when banks were introducing ATMs, people were feeling uncomfortable thinking that their money may be stolen outside the bank. They would withdraw all their money from the bank and deposit it inside the bank.
The ATM is a great story, actually, because what they had was a group of what they called the blue rinse ladies. So the blue rinse ladies were generally the branch managers' wives who actually explained to everyone how this machine worked. So we can't underestimate the importance of human interaction to explain technology. So I don't see a world where technology completely displaces that human interaction, but that displacement is happening quicker and quicker and quicker.
Let's talk about coexistence and competition.
Yes. So I think what's quite important is that these technologies have to exist inside a financial services construct. So they have to play by certain rules. So they have to play within the regulations. And often they have to partner with a bank, or they have to partner with an insurance company to get the trust that consumers need. But there is a point where they overtake the existing institution and you get critical mass.
Exactly that. The reason why I was asking you, we can make an example with Uber. You remember how the taxi industry reacted when they heard about Uber and how it was taking over the taxi industry?
Yes, well, exactly. Look, the regulator has an incredibly important role to play here, because when it comes to financial services and it comes to banking, you're dealing with people's money. So you don't want companies to rise up that aren't regulated, because you want to know that you're giving your money to a company that has been vetted, that is well managed, and that the regulator is looking after. But I have to be honest, I think regulators globally are really applying their minds to this fintech challenge, and they're saying we need to allow competition. We need to allow these younger firms to come in, because perhaps these large institutions haven't always acted in the best interests of the consumer.
Well, I believe that this is a new thing to some people to talk about, and surely we need to have some elementary and informative way of getting the message across. But then bringing it closer to home, just before you go, I heard about Alpha Code, and it was launched recently. What does it mean, and how is it going to impact and benefit all these local businesses that are well established versus the new entrepreneurs who are coming with the new and disruptive technology?
So Alpha Code is part of Rand Merchant Investment Holdings, and Rand Merchant Investment Holdings is the holding company for Discovery, Outsurance, MMI, and the sister company is the holding company for FirstRand. So these are companies that have innovation in their blood. These are companies that have redefined financial services in South Africa as we know it. So innovation and disruption is in this group's blood. So the idea of Alpha Code is we're saying, well, who's going to be the next Discovery? Who's going to be the next Outsurance? So who's going to be the next rising star from this entrepreneurial community and is going to deliver something to the South African consumer that's going to change the way that they interact with financial services?
Okay, so you're now inducing the element of continuity in the business.
Correct, and we're saying, who's got the great ideas?
Okay.
Let's identify these great businesses, let's nurture them, and let's invest in them so that they can become large organizations like Discovery and Outsurance.
Okay, we'll see as time goes on how the industries receive this new disruptive technology. But thank you very much for making time to talk to us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.